All right, we're live. Who would like to recap last session?
So we made it to the Tower of the 12. I lost my notes, but we made it to the Tower of the 12.
We made it through airport security.
Yes.
I gotta turn you up. I can never hear you.
The Tower of the 12 has 13 tiers, which represent the dragon-marked houses. Although there's 12 dragon-marked houses, there's 13 towers.
Yeah.
That was an interesting remark.
Well, there are actually 13 houses, but that's because one of the marks split into 2 houses.
Oh, okay.
But that wasn't the case when the tower was built originally.
So Winfrey delivered us to the docking station. We went through tower security. We saw brains and orbs as lights in the libraries. We asked the front desk once we were in there was like this brain orb thing, and Marthow went into it, and he could see like he was asked like what he was searching for, and he showed in his mind the angel faced creature, and it identified it as a daelkyr from Xoriat, and identified Professor Kraw to have some studies in it. So Marthow returned and shared this information, and then we talked to the front desk again and said we were looking for information on the daelkyr, and we were pointed to a library. So we opened up a door, which took us directly to the library we needed, which had the kind of the world of Eberron and in its appropriate orbit, where the planes, and then far away, way out of whack with the rest of the planes, was Xoriat and all the information about Xoriat. So most of the tomes around it were unreadable. And that's kind of
what we found. Elmorn found Xoriat for Dummies, the book.
Oh yeah, that's right, Xoriat for Dummies.
Some other name. I wrote down Xoriat for Dummies. Marthow found a skull that had an image of the daelkyr on it, and Eivar found a book by Erdelkin Kraw. Also, at some point, Elmorn was asking about the Mournlands, and they turned him away without giving him much information, and he became very angry.
They want me to set up a meeting with the council to talk about it.
Right, and so that's where Brevin is right now. He's talking to one of the council members to see if they'll give you audience.
Also, I wrote down red-haired weirdo because he approached me and tried to make me think about things.
Yes. He was wearing a weird helmet of some sort with blue robes with red trim and disheveled brownish reddish hair coming out from under the helmet. So the one thing I forgot to do, but it's okay, I guess, because you guys haven't had a chance to actually read through the things that you found yet, is send you the information about what's contained in your various books that you found, or skulls, as it may be the case. And so you guys are currently still in the library of the plains with the orrery above you. And you do see beneath one of the planes, looking at other books, is the familiar figure of the man who was accosting you guys, trying to insert images and thoughts into your brains, although he is sans helmet.
So in the Library of the Planes, we see all the different planes and information on the planes. Is Eberron information about Eberron not in the Library of the Planes?
No, I mean so beneath each of these spheres is a pillar. And the spheres move slowly because they're moving kind of in real time in relation to their theoretical orbits around Eberron. And so the pillars also move as well to stay beneath their particular sphere. So there is a pillar beneath Eberron, but if you were to investigate it, the knowledge regarding Eberron is less specific about Eberron because it's the world that you know, and it's the history that is kind of common to everybody, and more about the theoretical understandings of how Eberron fits within this cosmology.
Gotcha. The Marthow, the cultists that we ran across, were they were from the plane of Mabar, right? When we were in that in between plane. Was that Mabar that it was?
No, so you're thinking about the demiplane where
Yeah.
the cultists were hidden?
Yeah.
That was kind of still within Eberron, but more of a kind of a pocket space almost. If it was linked or outside of Eberron and to some capacity, it was never really clear what plane of existence you guys were on. You just knew it was kind of outside of the main reality.
Gotcha. All right. So
you guys have your texts, which, you know, there's definitely tables and space. If you guys wanted to look through them and get information that way, you could. You could also seek out Hurtlekin Kraw, and then also Elmorn has made mention that he wants to find that dude that was accosting you guys earlier, or there was some kind of note that you made about it, right, Elmorn?
Yes.
Well, I would like to try to find Hurtlekin Kraw. I'd rather talk to somebody whom may have some experience rather than reading skulls directly. At least try to gain some background knowledge before I dive into this.
Whereas it makes sense to me, look, just as a sign of respect, to look through the guy's book before you go and start asking him questions, because a lot of them might be answered in my book. And I don't want to walk up to him with the book and then say, look, what's the answer to this? While I'm holding it in my hand.
Also, I should say, you won't necessarily be able to leave the library with the books that you found. Right. I mean, there are ways for those that attend the Tower of the 12 in their studies, or you know, who are associated, that they may be able to take books out, similar to any other public library. But this institution is a little bit more cautious about how these tomes are protected because they are in many instances primary sources and ancient texts. So it's kind of like similar to you guys looking in the special collections at the University of Chicago's Regenstein Library or something. It's so. I mean, the library, if you were to do any kind of investigation, you would feel a strong sense of magic that really works hard to protect these things and make sure that they do not leave the boundaries of the library without special magical keys of some sort.
Only we had an homunculus that could just sit here and read this book and have a telepathic connection to us. Or could just copy it in full while we go.
Is that the benefit of the homunculus spell? Is that what the 6th level spell slot gets you?
Well, I mean, once you cast it out of combat, presumably, and then don't adventure till tomorrow, you still have your homunculus.
True.
So I'm going to find a table and sit down and start to peruse through this book.
Okay. So, Kurt, which book did you have?
The Kraw book.
Okay, so you have theoretical interactions and impact between Eberron and Xoriat. Subline, an examination of phenotypic mutations of flora and fauna after exposure to the so-called realm of madness.
Yep.
So as you peruse through it, thankfully it does have some pictures. It seems to be a guidebook that explores how creatures of Eberron and how plants and things have a tendency to change when exposed to a manifest zone from Xoriat. Now, it goes into detail that manifest zones do not happen on Eberron between Eberron and Xoriat because, unlike the other planes of existence, because of Xoriat's orbit, there's no ability for it to become coterminous or any of those things. But through his research, he found that that wasn't always the case. And so in the past, there have been manifest zones, and especially in Zendrick and in the mountain ranges of the Dakani Empire, the ancient Dakani Empire on Karnath, there are signs of manifest zones from Xoriat, and he's studied some of the creatures that lived in these areas, and this is where he's found things that he calls living symbionts, creatures who can meld with other people, and they give them certain powers or abilities, but also have a tendency to become host creatures, and the symbiont may influence them or may drain their life force in some way. So he's noticed this trend that where he can find evidence of previous manifest zones where Xoriat and Eberron kind of became coterminous and kind of crossed streams.
This suggests two questions to me, at least as a player. And Ivar's probably smarter than me, so maybe to Eivar. Does this have any relation to how living spells formed? And two is, does this have any relation to how the Mournland warps things?
That is an interesting idea, and bonus action point for you for coming up with that. So you look through the book to see if you can satisfy your curiosity, searching through the index and the table of contents. He really does focus on just Xoriat in particular, but if this is the case with this particular plane of existence, when the power and the influence that it had on Eberron in those places where they kind of crossed over, it's a pretty logical conclusion that it may also be relevant in other situations.
And if there are pictures of like any creatures in the book, I'm going to draw mustaches on them.
As you attempt to do that, the book kind of instantly closes, and then if you open it again, the mustaches are no longer there.
Just means draw more mustaches. That's all that means.
All right, let me. And then also another interesting note that you understand is that Hurtlekin makes the claim that many understand Xoriat as to be the realm of madness. However, he's not so sure. He definitely has this theory that there are things that exist on Xoriat that are difficult to be comprehended, understood, or even sensed through the normal ways that we perceive the world around us. Like Xoriat has these things that are kind of beyond our capability to process and understand. And so his argument is that contact can often result in the acquisition of some kind of mental illness or madness because the normal mind is unable to kind of keep up with everything that's going on. But that it's not necessarily it's not that the plane itself is one of madness, but rather a byproduct of what the plane actually represents or is.
Gotcha.
So at least with the background, I'm ready to go see if we can find Kraw.
Did you guys want to look into your elementary guide to Xoriat or Xoriat for Dummies, as it's otherwise known, or look at the skull?
Yeah, Marthow is gonna also look. He's gonna sit down and look at the skull, and he's just gonna look at it like this, like, and try to understand it.
Right.
He's not really. I'm not really sure what to look for. Was there writing on it?
Yeah, it's writing in archaic form of Draconic, as you understand it, which is a language that you speak, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
So in Elmorn's Xoriat for Dummies, it basically states that Xoriat is a plane of existence, that it's there was some cataclysmic event in the past that caused it to no longer directly orbit Eberron. And then it lists some theories as to how that may have happened. One of the stupider theories in the book is the proposal that it was a supervolcano eruption that somehow interacted with Xoriat and sent it spiraling away from Eberron. The other is that there may have been an actual collision between Eberron and Xoriat at one point, or that their orbits became too close and it kind of slung Xoriat away. And then there's also theories, especially this. So this book was published post Mournland, and so there's also a theory in it that believes that some kind of magical cataclysmic event similar to the creation of the Mournland may have resulted in the disrupted cosmology in the relationship between Eberron and Xoriat. And then in Eberron for Dummies, it mentions that there is evidence of creatures that at one point traveled from Xoriat to Eberron. It's thought that they've all died out. And that's really the meat of what's in that book.
Martha, there's too many big words in this book for me. I'm not quite understanding all of it.
You have to speak. You have to work on your locatiousness then.
Whatever.
I'll take a look through it when I've pierced the mind of this skull.
I'm pretty sure you were translating the book for me because I don't speak Draconic.
No,
your book isn't in Draconic.
Oh, I thought you said it was. Oh, my bad.
No, that's Marthow's skull.
Oh.
It's still too many big words.
Still too many big words. Elmorn's not that bright. He's all about fighting. He was never one for words.
So, Marthow, as you begin reading the skull, your eyes, the others notice that your eyes kind of glaze over, and your focus kind of goes out, and the words begin to, the runes carved into the skull sort of begin to swirl. At first they swirl upon the surface of the skull, and then they eventually lift from the skull and rearrange themselves into images. And you see something as if you're looking at it from across a campfire, in a sense. You see the picture of something that looks like the angel-faced creature. You see it, and then the vision jumps, and you see a dragon being, with the daelkyr's hands actually piercing into the dragon's face, similarly to how it did when it grabbed Fenris in the caves underneath Fort Deep Dark, where it was almost like it was manipulating the flesh and bone and rearranging it to a point. And then you see, and you kind of almost hear the dragon scream, a piercing scream, and the dragon is much, much, much larger than the daelkyr, but the daelkyr handles it as if it's a hamster. Without any kind of fear or any kind of hesitation, despite this being a creature of such terror and power. And then the scene jumps to the dragon. It's not altered externally as far as you can tell, but there's a presence to it that makes you understand that somehow deep down within it has been changed irrevocably. and it's carving these runes into the skulls and impressing, and then it brings these skulls to its forehead, and in the act of doing that, it leaves an impression of the angel-faced creature. And you notice that there are, at times, instances where the dragon is not just carving runes, but also looking at places that have been touched by the prophecy, the draconic prophecy. And although looking at these things, you wouldn't recognize it as such, but you get a sense that the thoughts that are coming in and your understanding is colored by the dragon author's impressions that's left on the skull. And then a moment later, your head begins to ache and you begin to feel yourself faint, and you actually drop the skull and fall back in your chair.
And so he's unconscious.
No, you're not unconscious, but it's like a moment of being overwhelmed.
You said my head was aching.
Yeah. And Elmorn and Eivar, you both notice a trickle of blood falling from Marthow's nose.
I think you've got the vapors.
Well, where am I? Oh, God, that skull. Is anybody like? Does anybody else am I drawing attention, or is this kind of like another day in the life in the Library of the Plains?
I mean, it wasn't dramatic enough to draw other people's attention. You just kind of dropped the skull, and the skull is rather heavy, so it did make a sound, and people kind of quickly looked over. But no different than if you dropped a large book in a library. People kind of just make sure that there's no danger, and then they go back in their whatever business they were conducting.
Gotcha. I saw something terrible. Have any of your books talked about these daelkyr and what their effects on other creatures?
Not specifically, no.
Not from what I understood.
And then I explained the dragon scene to them, and then remark, it seems they have the ability to influence creatures who would be much greater than them. I think we should find this Kraw fellow at this point.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Sounds like a plan.
Marthow doesn't really want to touch the skull anymore, so he's gonna like pick it up and put it on the table, like it's kind of like a hot pan out of the oven, and then kind of leave it.
Okay.
He assumes that library staff will probably clean it up.
That would be a good assumption, but not staff so much as unseen servants. So if you leave your books unattended long enough, invisible forces actually gently lift the books and replace them into their proper position in the shelves.
I'll leave my book as well then. Actually, he would take the time to go and put it back where he found it, not just leave it for the unseen servant.
All right.
Is the way out? So is there only one entrance?
Yeah.
We see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So as you guys leave the Library of the Plains, you emerge back into that sort of central place with the lady at the desk. And she looks up at you and she says, "Oh, hi there. You guys finish your business in the library?"
No, not exactly. We would like to speak to Kim Kraw, please.
Yes.
Oh, Professor Kraw. Of course, of course. Let me just make sure that everything is all right that he's in his chambers and is willing to take guests. And then so you see her write something on a piece of paper and then fold it.
Remember to add that these guys have seen a daelkyr on our world recently.
And she kind of goes like the scratching of a record. Can you say that again?
I have not, but my companions have seen a daelkyr somewhere. Fort Deep Dark. I don't know where that is, to be honest.
I've never seen it either.
Yes, I have seen it, and it is real. We must speak to Mr. Kraw most immediately.
So she says, "Oh, okay," and is a little startled. Which is weird because, she's just a receptionist. She wouldn't necessarily have knowledge about daelkyr or anything like that. So that's just an odd thing to note. But she writes down the message and then she folds the paper, sort of similar to a paper airplane, and then just kind of tosses it, and it then travels out the window. And a few moments later, another piece of paper flies through, and it says, "Currently working something big, but send them in." So then she's like, "Oh, okay. You guys are welcome to go in. Just 1 second, please." And then she writes another some more glyphs on a piece of paper, and then gives it to you and says, "Just go right back through that door, and you will see him in his studies."
So, thank you. It's most appreciated. And is there, so this receptionist what's her appearance look like? Is there any, like, notes?
So I believe I described her as an older woman, but still one that is kind of has maybe not a youthful appearance, but still a youthful energy about her.
Gotcha.
But other than that, there's not really anything special or significant about her. She is a human, as far as you can tell.
Okay. When we mentioned when like she kind of like stuttered when the daelkyr mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
did any change come over and her or any of her features?
Yeah, she looked a little bit more worried and concerned.
Okay. Okay.
Like as if she understood the urgency to sort of inform Turtlekin Kraw.
Okay. All right. So that we can head into Orkin Kraw's quarters or study.
Mm-hmm. So you go through the door, and you are brought into a large chamber that is it almost has an internal appearance like a cathedral because it's so large. The ceilings are so high. The architecture of the walls are it just kind of reminds you of an arched sort of cathedral, with stone columns and stone floors, and although there's many details about the room that would maybe draw your attention otherwise, you can't help but notice the thing right in the center of the room, and that is a small dwarf with a yellow goatee and green and blue robes, seems to be commanding energies that are flowing from his hands and wind whipping about him, blowing his robes. And these energies from his hands are flowing into what seem to be a portal or a sphere of complete blackness. A blackness so deep that it almost looks like a 2D image in a 3D world. And he is definitely concentrating very hard, beads of sweat coming down his face. And next to him, taking notes, is a young fellow wearing blue robes with red trim and shaggy reddish brown hair.
I knew it.
And then he sees you, he looks up and his eyes kind of go wide, and he approaches you really quickly with a motion to like shush, shush, shush. And he says, Professor Kraw is trying to open a portal to Xoriat to try and grab a piece of the plane. We cannot break his concentration right now. It is vital. But he heard that you had seen a daelkyr, and so he made sure to bring you up. So please, shh.
Marthow, hearing that this is a portal to Xoriat, or the attempt to open one, he becomes visibly nervous. He starts kind of white knuckling, kind of wringing his hands. He's not saying anything, but you can tell he's really uncomfortable right now.
Mm-hmm. You also notice that there's a contraption that's kind of surrounding the portal. It looks to be almost like a kind of silvery cage, but without the top. It doesn't go completely around the portal or look like it's entrapping it, but it's got these silver columns that are lined with dragon shards, very high quality dragon shards, and they're all glowing with energy, amplifying the magical current that Hurtlekin is producing. And at that point, despite the sound of the winds and the energy, you do hear him chanting in a constant, unbroken hum. And the center, right below this sphere of darkness, is a very large dragon shard, probably the size of a large dog.
Does it remind us of the dragon shard from that other plane of existence we were in?
Oh, the demi-plane with the
Hector
cultists?
Diamante? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Is it bigger or smaller than that one?
Smaller.
Is it the same? Does it look like the same color, or can we determine whether what kind of dragon shard this is?
I would allow either an Arcana, Religion, or Investigation check.
I'm good at 2 of those.
Oh.
I'm going to do investigation. I'm better at investigation. That is not good. A 10.
I'm going to do an Arcana because mine is.
That is a 10 with a +9, by the way.
I got a nat 20.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
It's actually now, because of your time with House Orion and everything like that, you do have some understanding and knowledge of dragon shards. And though you don't necessarily have a great ability to grade them or identify them, this one does seem to have hues that suggest it's actually a Siberys dragon shard, which are quite rare.
Siberys. Why does it sound familiar?
Because it's one of the dragon shards?
No, but are they the ones that do travel or something?
So Siberys, so there are basically 3 kinds of dragon shards: Kyber, Eberron, and Siberys shards, and they all each correspond to almost to where they are found. But there's also theories that kind of or like myths about the progenitor dragons and how they may have led to their creation and everything. But Siberys refers to the dragon shards. It also refers to very special types of dragon marks, and it also refers to the ring because Eberron is actually, it has a ring, kind of like a ring of Saturn in the sky, which are floating kind of not quite, they're not, it's not like they're additional moons or anything like that, but it's like a ring of finely ground up celestial bodies that kind of float in a particular orbit, and so that is known as the Ring of Siberys.
Okay.
And so in a moment, there's a very sharp end to the energy flowing from Hurtlekin. and he stops his chanting, and the winds immediately die down, and this sphere or circle of blackness kind of just stays there, kind of stabilized in the room. And Hurtlekin is breathing very heavily, and he turns to his assistant and says, Joffrey, I think we've managed it. I think we finally managed it. And then he looks to you guys and says, you guys have no idea the value of what I've just done here is beautiful. A capturing of a piece of Xoriat. And then he turns to you and says, which one of you saw the daelkyr?
That was me. It's the memory of it has burned into my mind like a brand over a hot leather.
Well, come, we must discuss. And then as he begins showing you to another area, there's a sudden low rumble within the room, and the blackness kind of vibrates in sync with that rumble.
The portal is still open?
It's sitting there floating. It was just like kind of there. And
perhaps you should close the portal.
Oh, that is no longer a portal. Like I said, that is a piece of Xoriat. It is rich to be studied for its magical properties and its influence upon Eberron.
I mean, so it doesn't look like a solid object.
Well, is the air around you a solid object? Is existence a solid object? But then the rumble begins to kind of increase to the point where it becomes...
Rumble, I'll say, yeah, you brought a piece of an evil plane. What could go wrong?
And just after that, like the pitch increases to the point where you reflexively have to cover your ears. Glasses start to shatter, and this inky blackness begins to ripple and actually drip onto the ground. And yeah. What's that?
And actually what?
And drip onto the ground. And
okay.
Now where this thing was a blackness so deep and so dark that it looked like a 2D image, it is now shiny or reflective of the lights around the room, demonstrating that it is a sphere, but slowly what appears to be a face begins pushing out of the sphere. It's not a face like any that you've known or seen, but it does appear to have a mouth and eyes, if you can call them that, or at least holes in its head where eyes might be. Somewhat triangular in shape, and it presses through. And as it's coming through, louder and louder, you guys are hearing something in your minds that is just it's indescribable. But it is, the one thing that you are able to register is that it is painful. To the point where you are almost on the verge of losing all sense, and it comes through from the portal and you kind of see Hurtlekin, and his eyes go wide and say, "What have I done?" And so the creature begins to continue forward from the portal. You see Hurtlekin trying to mess with the contraption that this sphere is floating above, which causes magical arcs of energy to leap from the contraption to it, but it doesn't seem to be slowing this creature from pulling itself from the sphere. And as it takes a step onto the ground, this inky blackness is continuing to drip from it. And as it does, each of these drips actually begins to mold and form of itself. And they eventually coalesce into these things. Screen sharing.
I'm still here.
Did you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever see that old MTV cartoon, The Max?
Nope.
No.
Which MTV cartoon?
The Max?
No. Ew.
Oh. These guys are the images at least are from that. But yeah, they're like kind of like balls of inky blackness with mouths and teeth and arms and legs.
All the rumblings going on, I imagine Eivar being like, "It'll be fine. Everything's fine. We're fine."
And then the creature emerges forth from the portal, and the inky blackness continues to drip, and more of these creatures begin forming, and they look like they're investigating their surroundings, but they're also like violently appear to be fighting with each other and breaking tables and just kind of going apeshit. And then the creature looks at Hurtlekin, and then so very slowly a tendril of this inky blackness seems to like shoots out and wraps around Hurtlekin. And he screams, but then the screaming stops, and you see, even though this inky flesh or whatever it is that seems to flow like water or like tar, being viscous but tactile, it pulls away from Hurtlekin as if it passes right through him. But as it does so, it pulls this form of energy from him that appears to be a blue, like kind of light construct that appears to be just like him. And it's this thing, this energy version of Hurtlekin appears to be screaming and fighting against this thing. And you can see that the ink kind of filling the spiritual veins and kind of almost corrupting this energy. And Hurtlekin falls to the ground. His body falls to the ground as this energy is pulled into the creature's chest until it's completely enveloped. And then you see what appears to be Hurtlekin kind of trying to rip and claw from the chest as if the chest is like a latex wall almost that is trying to pierce through but can't seem to manage it.
Shouldn't have fucked with Xoriat.
And of course, Joffrey is screaming, not knowing what to do. And he runs and hides, and a couple of these inky creatures then go chase him, and a couple of the inky creatures also go to chase after you guys.
Cutscene over.
I'm not quite sure. Seems like what's his nuts is dead, so we just met him and he's already gone. Huh?
He might still be saved.
You want to try and save him?
Sure. Why not?
He got himself into this mess. Played
He's
with
also
So how many of these
he's
things
also, according to the Tower of the 12, one of the foremost experts on Xoriat.
Oh God. We got his apprentice. We'll save his apprentice.
How many of these things are there?
Right now, there appear to be somewhere between 6 and 12.
So, purely for flavor reasons, related to my boon, I want to march forward and find like a bit of the black goo on the floor and touch it, poke it.
Okay. It definitely kind of reacts and then also embeds itself into you, into those runes.
And then I'm going to yell to the apprentice, "How about you run and get help rather than hiding?" And then I'm going to unsling my bow.
Joffrey just says, "Save yourselves!" So I don't know if I have enough in me to run this combat because it's probably going to take a while. You guys want to stop here and then pick up on Wednesday? I don't know. Is Wednesday okay for you? Next week?
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
What day works for you?
Well, we were going to do Wednesday for my campaign because that's when we normally do it. But then everyone was like, oh, it's Thanksgiving. So I don't know. I have to talk to my wife and see if we're going home Wednesday or not. I can let you know after I talk to her.
Or what about just going back to Monday? Does that work for everybody?
Mondays are always
Monday doesn't work for me next week because that's when we moved my Wednesday session to.
Gotcha.
Tuesday?
Huh?
Tuesday?
Tuesday's open.
I can't do Tuesday.
Okay.
Well, yeah, probably not. I got like a work dinner thing.
Okay.
So I don't know how that night's gonna end.
All right, so Anno, get back to us on whether Wednesday works for you or not, and then we'll make a decision of when we're going to be playing next week. Just kind of let me know as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
And if we have to move it because of the holiday or whatever, skip. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Holiday times are rough times for scheduling things.
Yeah. Towards the end of December is going to be a similar problem.
Yeah.
Probably. But then we're on track for a while.
Yeah. Good. 7 months, at least until Memorial Day. So 6 months.
Yeah. Because all those holidays in the interim are just bullshit federal holidays that nobody does anything except just drink.
I mean, I honor David's birthday every year. I don't know what you're talking about.
FYI, Samantha, my wife, she got an interview in Colorado.
Nice.
So if that all goes through, we might end up moving to Colorado.
Nice.
Very cool.
Will be one of the next other Illinoisans that have led the state.
Right. So I don't know like when that's all gonna happen. I guess the person that's supposed to like be the next person to talk to her is not gonna be back till after like Thanksgiving or whatever. So we'll find out more then. But yeah, so that I don't know, might be like January or something, February. Might be a weird time for me. That's all I'm saying.
I gotcha.
Right, fair enough. Well, we'll keep that in mind. Denver is awesome, though. I just came back from my honeymoon in Denver.
Nice.
So
yeah, we like Denver. We visited a couple times. Well, once. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, tell your wife good luck.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good luck.
So I know between last session and this session, it was a lot of exposition and everything, but we should be getting back into the action next session. Clearly.
First things first. This is the act.
You are assuming we will survive this fight.
Oh, I've stopped assuming anything about any fights. I set them up and I see how it works against you guys. You guys have so far managed to surprise me every single time. So,
well, hopefully we'll continue that trend.
All right, and then so Ano, for your character, you took the get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Hey,
then
did you see Matt Mercer's rules for death? His like revenant type class. You become a spirit when you die.
I haven't seen them, but I have implemented something similar to that in the past based on the sound of it.
Yeah,
This is a new class that he came
yeah,
up
it's like a
with,
new
where
class you get when you die.
When you die, you come back as like a living spirit or something.
Really?
I haven't actually seen it, but I saw some YouTube guy did like a review of it.
I just read the blurb about it. I didn't actually read the whole class yet, but it sounded interesting. It's like because I know my players are like dreading dying. They're like all afraid of dying, and they're like, I don't want to. I invested so much in my character. I'm like, get over it. My character died in the second session because I didn't want him anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Character death is not that big a deal, I think. But also it depends on the type of game you're running. So
yeah, it's definitely lighthearted, so I get it.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, you guys remember Ghost Walk from 3rd edition?
Yep.
No.
I really enjoyed Ghost Walk.
What's Ghost Walk?
So it was basically, so in 3rd edition you had these books that came out that gave player options, but they also kind of expanded on the world. And so Ghost Walk was, it could be used as its own setting, or it could be used as like a place within a campaign. But it was basically a kind of city of the dead, and if your character died, they could come back as like a zombie or a ghost, and you could take like class levels in these things to like improve your abilities. And it was a way for a player to potentially continue adventuring even after death. And it offered a lot of like different feats and different race options and things like that, and it was kind of cool.
That's kind of deep.
The class is called the Lingering Soul.
Lingering Soul. I'm gonna look that up.
And he says specifically, like, this is not something you're going to want to trot out every time somebody dies, but in certain special cases, you may want to let them start taking levels in this new class so that they retain the personality of who they were. Whereas I sort of feel like every death is a chance to invest in a whole new character.
Right. And then also, you don't want death to be meaningless either. Like, you don't want players to be like, oh, I died, whatever.
Yeah, but you lose your class. You have to take the new class. So, I mean, it's not like it's not like just whatever, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, you lose all of your. If you were a paladin, you'd lose all your shit. You have to become the living spirit or whatever it's called.
Oh, he posted this up as a pay what you want in DM's Guild.
Yeah.
I will pay 0.
I recently got a Pinterest account just so I could start finding D&D stuff on there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a great place where a lot of the pictures I pull for these guys.
Yeah, people post a lot of shit in there. I was like surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good resource.
Yeah, you can find better stuff there, at least I can, than Google image search even.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think Google image search would be pulling up everything, but I guess it's not. Or a lot of times it's pulling up things off of Pinterest.
Yeah.
And then the annoying thing was that Pinterest always be like, oh, you want to keep scrolling down? You got to make an account. I was just like, fuck you, Pinterest. And I finally gave in.
That's how they got you.
I got drawn into Pinterest initially because Lisa is really big into Pinterest, and she wanted to start a board where we could share things, or where she could share things with me. So
Pinterest was definitely one of those ideas where the first time somebody explained it to me, I just was like, dumb. I thought the same thing about Twitter, though. I was like, 140 characters.
Yeah.
No, I think Pinterest is at least better than Tumblr. Like, I don't know if you spent time on Tumblr, but
Tumblr is just more. I mean, Tumblr is just sort of like a blog site, so it's more about.
It is and it isn't. It's like people like post GIFs and stuff, and like those like images, like those cardstock images with like words. I don't know.
So I'm going to admit that I have no idea how to navigate Tumblr or Reddit. Like, those two things to me are really alien.
Wait, you don't know how to navigate Reddit?
I've never really tried. And I mean, I've gone on Reddit a couple of times just from links from Google searches, and I'll read some things in there, but like, I don't know how to Reddit.
You're not missing much. It gets old fast. Well, it gets old after a while. I don't know how fast, but I don't know. I've tried to avoid.
Just made a Reddit account. I've been lurking on Reddit for a while, and I was like, I'm gonna make an account and start like commenting on people's D&D stuff and start becoming a part of the D&D Reddit community.
Mm-hmm.
I figured I should.
See, I prefer the more traditional forums, and so like I post a lot on N-World.
See, I've never. I don't think I've ever posted on a forum ever. So.
I used to be big on N-World and other forums, but I haven't been to N-World in a long time.
No.
The first D&D forum, actually one of the first times I ever played D&D was a play-by-post game on a site called therealmsofevil.net.
Play by post. So what, you guys just posted on the forum, and that's how you played?
Yeah. So the way it worked was, it was kind of like just playing by email almost. There were different commands though that you could put in that would give dice rolls and things like that. But it sucked for combat because you'd have, it sucked just in general because you'd have some people that would post like on an hourly basis, whereas you'd have other people that you might be lucky to get one post a week. And so the game was really kind of dictated by the slowest poster in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Maybe one of those things, if you had like a couple of them going, then hopefully one of them is moving at a given time.
Yeah, but there was just so much loss of interest. Like, I don't think I've ever been... I was never in a game that actually ever finished even like a single story arc. It was torturous. And I actually got in trouble at work when just after college because I would be constantly like writing my posts for these games instead of doing work. And the boss caught me one time. Well, not one time, several times, which is why it was a problem.
No.
Yeah, I really think employers should just stop looking at people's internet histories at work. It's going to depress them.
Oh, if only it was just that he was looking at my history, but no, he saw me actually writing it, looking over my shoulder.
No. Oh gosh.
And then he doesn't even tell me. He just, because this was like the big boss, and he just told my immediate supervisor, which is not good.
Your employees writing that they're in fantasy erotica. You might want to put
Yeah, that was an awkward conversation.
Either that or it was like, your employee just split the party. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
I mean, that you're lucky that's not a fireable offense.
All right, guys. So maybe Wednesday. It's looking like if it's gonna happen. So I'll keep everybody posted. Dustin, get at me. We'll figure out your boon.
Yeah, I have a couple ideas. I just need to work on them a little more.
Okay.
All right. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Later, everyone.
Bye.